Hi, my name is Bruno Moreland and I teach AP African American Studies. And in this series, I'm going to go over all the required sources in the AP African American Studies curriculum. Today, we're looking at unit topic 2.1, African Explorers in the Americas. This unit topic deals mostly with what's called ladinos. These are Atlantic creoles or Africans who had spent time in the Iberian Peninsula and then traveled over to the Americas with the Spanish and the Portuguese. Some of these ladinos were free and some of them were enslaved, but what's common amongst all of them is that they were familiar with Iberian culture and acted as a form of intermediary between the Europeans and indigenous people before the dominance of chattel slavery in the Americas. Some of them, as we'll see today, were even involved in the claiming of indigenous land for Spain. So we've got two required sources to look at in this topic. One of them is an image, and then another one is an excerpt from a letter, both of which pertain to the person named Juan Garrido. Juan Garrido was born in the Kingdom of the Congo and later moved to Lisbon in Portugal, where he was freed. He was the first known African in North America, and he made his way with Spain as part of the Conquistador expeditions. He was with the Spanish in a 1513 expedition of what is now Mexico, and throughout all of his time working with the Spanish and then settling in what becomes Mexico City, he maintains his freedom. We first see him in the image titled Depiction of a Black Soldier in the Hernan Cortes Entourage. This image comes from what's called the Duran Codex, or its formal name, The History of the Indies of New Spain, published in 1579. It was written and illustrated by a Dominican friar or a missionary that spends time in New Spain or Mexico, and it was a collection of all the information that he could get from the Aztecs and of the Spanish. It documented the origin story of the Aztecs, the Spanish conquest of the Aztec capital city, Tenochtitlan, and then also what happened afterwards. Duran was actually born after the conquest of Tenochtitlan and the Aztec Empire, so a lot of his depictions and descriptions that he wrote in the book were all from the sources that he interviewed. That's why we can't be exactly sure that the person depicted in this image is Juan Garrido, but based on all the other circumstantial evidence that we have about Juan Garrido's life, we can be pretty certain that this is an image of Juan Garrido. Now, the reason why we can't automatically assume that this is Juan Garrido is because there were other Black or African participants in the conquest of New Spain. The second document is a petition from 1538 written by Juan Garrido to the King of Spain. In this letter, he's going to detail everything that he has done for the Spanish crown in hopes that he would get some form of compensation. The main thing that we can gather from this letter is that for all of the activities and conquests that Juan Garrido was involved in for the Spanish, he never was properly compensated like most other Spanish soldiers. Usually, a Spanish conquistador would be a Spanish soldier would be compensated for his military service by either getting some gold payment or a land payment. Garrido seems to not have gotten any of those things, which is why he's asking the King of Spain to be compensated proportionally to his service to the Spanish crown. Before we go much further, I'll read you the entire excerpt as it isn't a very long letter. He says, I, Juan Garrido, Black resident of this Mexico City, appear before your mercy and states that I am in need of your making a probanza to the perpetuity of the king, a report on how I served your majesty in the conquest and pacification of this New Spain. From the time when the Marqués del Valle Cortés entered it, and in his company I was present at all invasions and conquests and pacifications which were carried out, always with the said Marqués, all of which I did at my own expense without being given either salary or allotment of natives or anything else. As I am married and a resident of the city where I have always lived, and also as I went with the Marqués del Valle to discover the islands which are in the part of the Southern Sea, the Pacific, where there was much hunger and privation, and also as I went to discover and pacify the islands of San Juan de Buriquén de Puerto Rico, and also as I went on the pacification and conquest of the island of Cuba with the adelantado Diego Velázquez. In all these ways, for 30 years have I served and continue to serve your majesty. For these reasons stated above do I petition your mercy. And also because I was the first to have the inspiration to sow wheat here in New Spain and to see if it took. I did this and experimented at my own expense. So as part of this letter, we can see that he continues to serve in military expeditions, going to Puerto Rico and Cuba and serving under another conquistador, Velázquez, helping Spain gain new territory and access to resources in North America. And as he finishes off in the last part of his letter, he was the first person to sow wheat in New Spain. But this letter at least argues that Juan Garrido had some involvement in experimenting with this type of agriculture in New Spain. We don't know much more about Juan Garrido, except that he died in 1550. He continued to live outside of the city walls in Mexico City, and he was given menial jobs in the New Spain administration of Mexico City and New Spain. Well, that's it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it and that you learned something. Hopefully you come back for the next video, in which we'll start talking about the departure zones for the transatlantic slave trade. Thank you.